Fishes!
Welcome, Marty.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
But we actually haven't known each other that long, really.
Not that long, yeah. I mean, before I met you, I heard about you.
What did you hear about
music videos, and he does kick-ass music videos.
It's all right. Okay.
And yeah. And I think I can reiterate Joe Vaz's sentiments when he says, "Yeah, I'd make the shit look good."
Good. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember the music video I did with you, where I was a SWAT guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For Cantrell.
Yeah. And
that's already a few years ago already.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. But like people still, I mean, they take me quite seriously as a SWAT guy nowadays.
I'll take it quite seriously as a SWAT guy.
Like, yeah, just send that picture. They'll
We
know.
want a SWAT guy.
Yeah, they'll know
Get
me
Marty
bloody
in.
business.
Yeah. So your background, I mean, you do TV and film. You've done theatre.
Yeah.
You've been a puppeteer.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you prefer? Do you prefer theatre or film? Or puppeteering?
Puppeteering is it's a weird game. It's you're taking an inanimate object and you're bringing it to life, and the audience is supposed to believe that this object is alive.
So when you're doing that puppeteering, you're looking at a little screen at the bottom, right? So you
sometimes,
can
yeah. At the moment, I do a lot of giant puppets or real life puppets. So
I remember you saying
the characters are usually life sized and takes about 3 people to manipulate, and we all have to be like in sync with our breath. So we all breathe together. So you know when the puppet's gonna move, sit down, stand up.
That's
it's
crazy.
all this like, yeah, it's like synchronized swimming, but
were you always
way
into?
weird.
I mean, how did you even get into puppeteering?
There was a director at UCT, and she was doing her master's, and she came from France, and she needed people to do shows with her.
So you didn't start out with a sock or anything like that?
No. Well, as a kid, I was doing like a little sock puppets and that sort of thing. And that's how I started, pretty much. And then next thing I know, I was in France doing puppets. Yeah.
And then, so what do you say? What do you prefer, like film or?
What I like about theatre is that there's continuity. So you get a big role, and that role, the character starts where the character starts, and it ends when it ends. You know, you're not chopping and changing, whereas in film, you could start at the end and then do the beginning midway and then do some other scene here and another scene there. And then you got to keep the continuity in your head in terms of like where your character's at. Whereas in theatre, you just you get there, you go, and your character goes through everything, and then you have to do it all again the next day, which is really weird.
As I said, a lot of respect for theatre. But you also do stand-up as well.
Yeah. I quit a little while ago just because I got a bit older and all my
It's
jokes
not funny
were
anymore.
It's
just
not
not funny
my
anymore.
jokes are not PC anymore. I mean, the kind of stuff I was saying back, 2000, 2008, 9, 10.
It's a bit risky.
Yeah, it's a bit risky now. Everyone's a little more
But isn't it good to be
sensitive.
risky? Isn't it?
I know. I could be a Dave Chappelle.
I mean, ever since like Will Smith got up on stage and like slapped Chris Rock, I think it's, people are like comedians, they've got like the worst. So they've got lots of new content for lots of like things, but some people just can't fucking take a joke. Some people can't take a joke, and that's your job to, even when it's serious things that you're talking about, there's always something funny in it, and it's just a joke. That's the whole fucking point.
It's just
sense of humor and personality.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is it comes across as your opinion, and then people get pissed off about it. But I remember doing a stand-up comedy show at the old Zula bar, and there was this guy who people had to carry his wheelchair up for him so that he can come in and watch. And I had this great joke about paraplegics and people in wheelchairs.
Horrible.
And for a second, I was like, shit, I saw this guy and I was like, maybe I shouldn't tell this joke. Then I launched it to anyway, and he laughed the hardest. And he came to me later and he was like, thanks for fucking including me. People always look at me and go and feel sorry for me, but you looked at me like just like anybody else in the crowd and you thought that was great.
What was the joke? Go on, what was the joke?
I actually can't remember the joke.
Fuck
entirely.
off.
But
That's a fucking lie, and you fucking know. That's a lie, and you know. We'll move on to the next thing, Marty. We'll move on.
yeah. But it's quite similar to, quite funny enough, Paul Snodgrass's joke about.
And we just lost Paul recently.
Yeah.
Which was.
But he used to do
fucking
this really
sad.
cool joke towards the end of his set where he'd pull down his pants. The whole joke was the fact that, like, you know, he'd get a blow, like, he'd ask someone, this lady would tell him, like, listen, do you want a penguin? I'll give you a penguin. He's like, oh, what that? What's a penguin? You know, and they'd go into a store at a club somewhere and he'd pull down his pants and, you know, she'd almost start blowing him and then she'd walk away and he'd be like, hey, where you going? hey, with his pants down. Oh, man. I miss the guy. He
was great.
He was an
man.
absolute legend.
When I got the news about Paul, I was like, even now, I still can't believe it. Like,
no, I can't believe it.
And it's such a cliche to say, but it always happens to the nicest people. You know, Paul, he fucking knew everyone. He had time for everyone. You know, I only get to see him every now and then, but when we saw each other, we hung out, and he was such a nice dude. He's so nice, and I'm so happy that I got him in Friar Barry, and he was. I actually nearly played that part in Friar Barry, and I was like, you know what? Paul would be amazing at this role, and I'm like, he has to do it, and he killed it, and he was so good. And I had a few other projects lined up that I wanted to work with Paul as well.
Yeah.
Such, and he was doing so well. That was the thing.
No, yeah, he was
over the
really-
past few years, dude. He was killing it. He was really. You know, because obviously, you know, he stopped doing the stand-up comedy a little bit, and but I mean, he did everything. He did stand-up comedy, he did
MC'd, man.
MCing and everything. Like, dude, he did so much stuff. And I actually worked with him on a job in January, and but yeah, it's like it was still a shock. Like, I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, such a talented guy, and he was just getting better and better. That was the thing. He was booking more jobs. He was getting more like TV and film stuff.
Yeah, he was getting into his prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And great, you know, he had this great look. You know, he had this great look, the beard and the scruffiness.
Yeah.
He was such a nice guy. Have you seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy?
Not yet, but apparently it's the one to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a really good film. There's like a lot of heart in it. But do you like superhero movies?
I've been a Marvel fan since about 7 years old.
Yeah, but probably not the
So
same.
this is actually seeing all of this on screen. I remember watching the first Avengers. I almost pissed my pants. I was like, "There's the Avengers! It's like they're all there. There's Iron Man. There's Thor. There's Hulk."
I think that
It's
was like the dream of when you were a kid, to have
Yeah.
like all those guys together
in a movie.
Yeah, in a live action movie. I mean, obviously with the the Marvel and DC, I obviously grew up with the original Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then Spider-Man came along and all this, and then I always thought it was funny because I even watched like the 80s Captain America, 90s Captain America films, but the 70s Spider-Man, that was the fucking funniest. Because it's literally just a dude on a rope swinging from a building going, fuck! Just like swinging from like side to side, which was like crazy stunts back then. Not even shot well, it's just like some poor guy holding onto a rope.
They did a Japanese version. And,
I think that was like
and Spider-Man had like Uzis and he was just going balls to the wall, swing. I was like, wow, okay, you guys didn't get the point of Spider-Man.
You obviously didn't see the cartoon.
No, clearly not.
Yeah. And then with the superhero movies, because obviously now, back in the day, you'd never find any black superheroes.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it wasn't until we were chatting earlier, like Blade.
Yeah.
When Blade came along, and then before that, I can't think.
No, before that there was nothing. There was pretty much nothing. There was the only kind of superhero you'd have was from Grindhouse. You'd have Shaft. That was like, he wasn't a superhero. It's just like, it's a cool dude.
Yeah. How do you feel when? I remember it was on one of the Marvel films. I don't think it was that good. It might have been Daredevil or something. But it was stuff like, when it's like something original in the comic.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like the Kingpin. It was like this white, big, fat dude.
Yeah,
But now it's like, I think it was Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah.
It was just different. And I love Michael Clark Duncan. I don't think, I can't remember the film, to be honest. that well. But like, how do you feel when they do those like when they swap over?
Yeah, no, it's kind of sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of interesting because I mean, for the Marvel movies, Nick Fury, they were just like, we want Samuel Jackson, so we just can make Nick Fury black.
Yeah. And he's great at it. He's like amazing.
And then what they started doing in the comic books, Nick Fury was black too. It's just like, oh, okay, just keep that trend going, and then Samuel Jackson sitting there going,
It's that's what I'm saying. It's interesting, but then it's something like in the near future, are we going to see like a black Superman? Are we going to see a black Spider-Man? So for me, I can't picture that. I think it would be cool. It's one of those. It's for me. I don't give a fuck who it is. It's just like it's about the right casting and making the character good. But obviously, when I grew up on the White Spider-Man.
Exactly.
For me, it's a bit weird, but I'm open to. What I'm not open to, and a lot of people might disagree with me. It's just like like James Bond. So Ian Fleming, went to that, and they said, there could be a black James Bond, and I'm like, well, James Bond was like a white dude. It came from the books, and he was like a white dude. So you can't be a black dude. Yeah. You can have another secret agent. It can be like 0011, 0010, and and it's the same with the chick.
Let's put it this way: if James Bond was black, they'd definitely see him coming. He'd stick out like a sore thumb in the middle of like a club or whatever. It's like, we're looking for a black guy. His name's James Bond. There he is right there.
Ordering the martini. It's definitely him.
You're supposed to be a spy. You're not
but that's what I'm saying. It's just
unless it's in Africa.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is when, if people like disagree with me with that, is that I think the best one is Shaft. Yeah. So Shaft, I used to watch the the old school Shaft movies, from the 70s and 80s, and it's like if somebody said, "Let's make Shaft white," I'd be just like, "You can't." You fucking can't. Shaft has to be black. That dude's like too cool. He has to be black. You can't have a white fucking Shaft. That's the way I switch it around. That's how I see it.
There's a cultural context to some of these characters.
Yeah. You can't have a white. Can you imagine a white Shaft? Like, how would a white Shaft? What would he do?
I'll be honest,
what would he say?
I was watching Lord of the Rings: Ring of Power, and to see like black dwarves, I was like, okay. It's like, okay. And then I saw a couple of black elves. I was like, I'm not so sure. That whole classic, elven, clean white.
So what's wrong with having a black dwarf?
Black dwarfs, I'm down for black dwarfs. Like miners. It really goes into the whole.
So black small people. What's
little workers.
But you don't really see a lot of black little people, do you?
No, you don't.
How many black little people have you ever seen?
I haven't seen one.
Well, there you go.
Unless you go find a pygmy, then it's pygmy culture. Yeah, they're all small. That's them, but they're in proportion. It's like small dwarfs.
Like being a black dude, how do you look at like the way we are right now and stuff where it's like, for like funding or stuff like this where they try like have the black filmmakers fund, or they they tick certain boxes with a certain amount of people of color and to get funding, and like when you hear that, what do you think? Like, what do you?
In one sense, it's kind of okay.
Obviously, we want equal.
Yeah, so that you can. What they're trying to do is, it is nice to have a quota, and to getting so many black people into certain roles to try and create some sort of equality. But it's, in a sense, it's also a bit forced because it should be the best person for the job.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But the big problem is that like.
Obviously,
even if you don't see color, cinema sees color, which is.
Yeah. But I always find it interesting because there is more white people in film without a fucking doubt.
Yeah, no doubt.
And obviously it's changed a lot over the
Yeah.
years, which is great. So that, more films are happening with people of color and stuff like that, which is.
I mean, it's the same for
great.
women, where there were less women in decent roles in films. Now there are more women with decent roles. Female directors, female-led films.
Sometimes with some of these cases, when people do say some stuff, I'm always just like. Sometimes I've heard women talking about women filmmakers and directors. Obviously, there's more guy directors and stuff like that. Obviously, I know all that. But it's just sometimes they don't know female directors that have already achieved so much. Like in the 80s, there's so many fucking great movies in the 80s that women have directed. And there's also so many amazing black actors from back in the day that, like Sidney Poitier, he was like fucking amazing. And he was doing films like when there was still black and white movies, you know what I mean? And he was doing shit that nobody else.
He had the first sort of interracial romance in a film ever.
Yeah. And he's brilliant. He's a
and
legend.
it was simply because he got a lot of death threats, and he was like, "I'm still game." And the actress was really like, "Let's do this. I'm game as well. Let's change the narrative," and they completely did.
So it's just sometimes when some people don't know like the certain history of people that have, because I think it's also taken away those achievements that those amazing actors have done already, or the women directors that have already done already. I'm just like, know your shit as well. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. When I'm just like, fuck, I can name so many female directors, but that's always the thing. It's like, if you go up to somebody on the street and go, name 10 directors, I guarantee you they'll struggle after 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is always interesting to see. It's like that fame of, you have to be so famous for everybody to know your name, or you have to be so famous that the film is so famous that people know it. You know what I mean? And it's like, going back to the, with, like, do you remember, like, it was a few years ago, and it was at the Oscars, and there was like, no black people won at the Oscars.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you remember that. So it's like, no black people won at the Oscars. And then I said, well, the Oscars aren't racist. It's just whatever was made. And, it's whatever was made at the time and stuff. Because, people write all this stuff, and, and certain films get through. And it's not just making films, there's a whole big thing that goes on behind all the Oscar, which film, how films get chosen, and the producers throwing parties for certain films and all this, and trying to get all these people on board. Like, it costs like money, but it's like it's like which films that are written at that time that has a lead black dude in it or something like that. So when that happened and no black people won that year, and I was like, well, the Oscars aren't racist, but then it's like I felt, and I heard from a lot of people, and I also saw online. So the next year, obviously, loads of black people won.
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking, are the Oscars racist just because they're saying one thing and then they're saying the other thing, and they feel like they don't want to leave people out, or you know what I mean? It's that like.
It's also
like the bottom line is, if the film's fucking good, it's good. There's many movies that are amazing with a black cast that don't make it into the Oscars, just like many other movies.
But it's also about the court of public opinion. So it's about what's trending and what's happening. And sometimes what happens is that, like, yes, no black people win that year, but then there's a campaign to show everyone that no black people won that year. So then the next year, it's kind of like, okay.
But I just feel like this day and age that we live in now, like, people are just fucking ugly, dude. People are, they fucking moan about everything.
I mean, now there's this whole situation of there are a lot of actors, really good actors, that say are male and identify as female, like the actress from Juno, or female that identify as male. Yeah. So which category do you put them in?
Yeah. But this is the thing.
I read this amazing article that this actress who's in the show called Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I've been watching it. Oh, you told me about that. And I started watching it.
She decided to write this whole article about, this is a solution that you have for people who are either transgender or whatever. It's about the category shouldn't be male best actor, male female best actress. It should be
best actor.
It should be best. It should be awarded to the person who played the best male in a movie. So you might identify as female, but your role was a male role, and therefore you get to you qualify for the male part. So then you completely discard the whole gender situation in terms of the person, and then it's about the character they played.
Yeah. Well, it's like Morgan Freeman. I saw that interview when these people say, and they talk about like racism, or they talked about I can't remember what the whole thing was, but they asked Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman just said, "Stop talking about it." You know, that's the other thing that's wrong. That people are always moaning about this, moaning that. Just like fucking stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter who the fuck you are or anything like that. You know, it's just like stop fucking talking about it. You know, it's when people like I always feel that when people go, we're this or we're that or we're this. And I don't care who you are. I'll get along with you. I'm friendly with everybody. I don't give a fuck who you are. But it's just like who. Fuck man, I lost my train of thought. But it doesn't matter who you are and all this. But I feel that it's almost like people don't want to be put in a box, but then they want to be put in a box.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you forget all of that stuff, and it's like, what's that famous line? Famous line is like, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's like, why do people need to talk about this and this and and it's like you saying like when you were a kid, you didn't have that like black superhero.
Yeah.
And then for me as a kid, like. I know he's not a superhero, but for me it was like Mr. T. Mr. T was like the fucking best when I was a kid.
I mean,
loved Mr. T. He was like the best fucking guy.
So some of my superheroes were the sidekick, because the sidekick was somebody of color most of the time. So then those are sort of my heroes up until they started bringing out, black heroes or even black superheroes for that matter. I mean, I was chatting to my nephew. And I asked him what color is Spider-Man, and he said black, because the new Spider-Man, well, he's South American, Miles Morales. That's the Spider-Man he knows. He doesn't know Peter Parker. That's the Spider-Man he knows. So he's like, so I'm like, no, Spider-Man's white. He's like, But he knows that little kid voice. He's not white.
But it's like I think it was in what's that Seth Rogen film, like Bad Neighbors, or what was it called? I can't remember Bad Neighbors or something. I can't remember the name of the film.
Yeah.
But he sits there and he talks to the one guy and he goes, who's your Batman? Like my Batman is Michael Keaton, which is my Batman.
You know what I mean?
And then some people's Batman is Christian Bale. But for me, it will always be Michael Keaton.
Yeah. Even with the bat nipples.
Well, that was Batman Forever.
Forever, yeah.
That was what's his name directing those?
Old Schumacher.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which he doesn't like talking about. Why there's nipples on the bat suit.
I mean, there's a lot of problems in that movie.
And then just talking about when you were talking about like if somebody was going to get nominated for playing a male or female, or what did they identify as?
Yeah.
And what I watched the other day, I watched Miss Doubtfire. So if you think about Miss Doubtfire, I mean, could they make that movie today without anybody fucking moaning or saying anything?
If you think, that's an interesting one, because you could make it with a black comedian. That's the only way it's going to pass. And it's a weird thing. Like, if you think about it, for generations and generations, there've been black comedians cross-dressing and, from Eddie Murphy to Chris Tucker to Chris Rock and that's something that like black male comedians can easily get away with. Whereas, just imagine Chris Hemsworth deciding now I'm going to do like a Miss Doubtfire vibe. It's not going to work. Or Edward Norton going, no, I'm going to,
No, because I was watching that and I was thinking, because it's actually really interesting, that film. And that's why I was like, could they make this film now without anybody like moaning? Because it was just like, because the subject matter is obviously the divorce. And the weird thing was, it's like, what is it, Sally Field? Is it Sally Field? Yeah. Sally Field was like the bad parent in a way. Like that film actually shows that she's like the bad parent and Robin
Yeah,
Williams
yeah.
is the good one.
He's
The
the
kids
one.
want to live with the father, and it's that that whole messy divorce, and then obviously his cousin does the prosthetics and he makes himself a woman, and then he can be the nanny or whatever and look after him. I was just thinking, fuck, I don't know if they could do that now. I don't know.
You can't. You can't. I don't think you're gonna get away with it.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't.
Yeah, and then at the moment, obviously, just recently we were working on the Fry Barry cartoon.
Yeah. Absolutely love that.
Definitely adult cartoon.
Yeah.
But Marty was doing some of the voices there for some of the
That was a lot of fun.
And the sex workers' voices and stuff like that, which is fucking funny.
Drug dealer, sex worker. I mean, that was a lot of fun. It's quite interesting when being a male and doing female voices. Like, where do you go? Sometimes it's comical, like sometimes it's serious. I mean, we were just talking about Robin Williams doing Mrs. Doubtfire, and he put on this little voice and and like, if you think about it, would that really pass? Like, would it really pass? This woman, really burly woman, comes to your door. Hello, I'm your new maid. You're like,
and he's meant to be it wasn't he meant to be like quite tall? Like I think it was like one of the kids goes, "Oh, you can play for the American football team."
Yeah, you linebacker or something. Yeah.
But and then going back to like on film, like have you got any like stories like when you were on set? Any like strange or funny things happen?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of working for Yui Ball. If you don't know him, he's a German director and he's an absolute tyrant. And the one movie I did was Jungerweeds. And the first day I got there, Billy Zane was on the movie. First day I got there, my trailer was next to Billy Zane's. And
just have to put that one in.
And all our trailers were set to about like 24, 25 degrees. And he didn't appreciate that. So he came out, chatted to the producers, and he said, listen, I want my trailer a bit warmer. And instead of using the remote just to change the temperature, they literally got him a new trailer.
Really?
To his specifications. It rolled in about 2 hours later.
That's great.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to be working with this guy. Yeah. Oh, that's really nice.
It's always crazy when you hear all these stories about certain... So, like, I've heard so many stories about, like, Val Kilmer, like, being on set. I mean, when he came out here, I heard loads of stories. People said that I think it was The Ghost in the Darkness, he was filming with Michael Douglas, and, Michael Douglas's trailer was at, like a meter longer or something like this, and he was, like, complaining, and... I've just heard like so many different stories, like how bad he is. But then I watched that documentary and I was like, oh, he's such a good actor. And all He does deliver. And then he took a dip with a lot of stuff, and he came back up again with like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh yeah.
But it's always like a shame when you hear these stories, and then you hear the good stories, like Michael Douglas. He would learn like everybody's name. He would come on set, whether you're an assistant, AD, or whoever, like makeup, but you would like learn everybody's name and.
Yeah, well, on this movie, not Billy Zane. What an arrogant bastard!
Yeah. I met him in Camps Bay while he was shooting that.
And in that film,
was it Edward Furlong as well?
Yeah, Edward Furlong was on it, and in that film, I am in almost every single shot, pretty much every action shot. I'm taking a machete, hacking a baby, and throwing it into the fire. I'm gunning people down, but you can only see me from my shoulders all the way down. They cut my head out the entire movie. I'm in like so many scenes, credited everything, just cut here. Wow. And I remember the one day we had to come in. This is more of a tragic story. We came in, and Yui brought us all together, and there was a scene where I was supposed to stand outside a hut, and another guy was supposed to come in, and he rapes this woman in this hut. So we get there, and Yui's like, okay, today we're doing, we make new scene, okay, we make new scene. I want you, and you're all going to do the rape today. We go like, what? I'm going to stand outside the hut, bro, with my AK and chill out. No. You all's going to do the rape. And then I look into the hut, and there's this poor actress. She's got prosthetics all over her shoulder, all the way down to her arm, and she's got a machete through it. And they've got like a bloodline going all the way out the back. So she's not going anywhere. And they've also just told her, listen, not one rape today, many today.
And the actress didn't know
no, she.
Yeah, that's hectic.
And there was no point of us doing a rehearsal to prepare or any of that stuff. He was just like,
what? That's
and
crazy.
that scene didn't even make it in the movie. So I'm like, where's that footage?
This is my
like,
scene
for my little.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the more hectic scenes that I did. And it kind of taught me that you need to check your contracts, call your agent.
Well, they have a person that because it's meant to be like, it's a big thing now where they have that. There's a certain name for it. I actually don't know for when you're shooting sex scenes and something like that. There's that certain person now that comes on board and like talks to you both before you do it. What are you comfortable with? What am I comfortable with?
Yeah.
Are you okay with this and this? And then you talk through it, and then there's a little rehearsal or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing.
It's a big thing. I mean, sex scenes are quite a weird thing to like.
But it's even like the kissing game, it's one of the, because you always hear those stories like, can you use tongue? Are you not supposed to use tongue? Or I've also heard that if she uses tongue, it doesn't mean that you can use tongue. So it's just like, well, what the fuck am I mean supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm just like, just this fish,
just
opening up.
Open, close. Yeah. It's kind of weird. And then there's, I'm going to talk about erections now. There is that thing of like, you pitch up on set, you're going to do a sex scene, and you're like, you
I hope you're not talking about the rape scene that you were doing.
Everything's cool, like, but then,
what's that happening?
You get a little excited. Then what do you do?
Yeah,
and I've heard some actors use muscle relaxants.
Just a belt, just try it. Or you just do the 12 o'clock trick, just straight up underneath the belt. Keep it there. It's not hanging out. It's just fine, Nobody knows about it.
Or I know on Game of Thrones they had what's called the love pillow. Yeah. So it's just this like little pillow that she puts in between you and her, so that there's no actual...
I hope that pillow gets like washed. Does it just go around like all the sex scenes on Game of Thrones?
There's like no contact. And I was like, muscle relaxants? I just took myself aside, did some juju, some voodoos, little breathing.
Think about your mom. Think about your gran. Think about all
this.
Let's
do this scene. Yeah, sex scenes are weird, man.
So we all know that Marty got a hard on when he did a sex scene.
Oh yeah. They cut that one out the movie. It's great.
On that one, it was just here. And
this one was just here as opposed to the rest of me. Can't get this shit right.
So what's been your like favorite experience, in a film or TV series?
One of my favorites was Dread. Worked with Joe Vaz on that one. I was like one of his henchmen pretty much, and he was a big bad guy. That was quite fun. We did a bit of stunt work. We got to go in the range, shoot some guns, get used to working with guns, gun safety. And I spent about a week. They called me back for a week because I got shot by Judge Dredd. And I spent a week on the floor. They took Polaroids and they had to get me in the right exact position, put the right amount of blood on. And it was like, dude, fall asleep. We'll wake you up for lunchtime. Don't snore.
Yeah. You still got your day rate on all those days.
Yeah, man. Exactly. Like a whole week of just lying around so they can get all the special effects and stuff done. Yeah, it was great.
Is that why it was one of your favorite parts?
I just got to lie around
and get paid for this.
Blood, go to lunch. Can you redo the? Yeah, thanks.
You're definitely playing the dead body in my next film.
Yes,
you've got the fucking part.
The other one was Perfect Wave. I got to work with Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood.
Oh, amazing! Cool.
That was probably one of my biggest roles so far. And it's quite an emotional role as well because Scotty dies at some point and I'm his big mate and I get to cry over his body. It's really emotional. Great for the show reel. And then the other one, what was it called? Oh, in the same movie, Perfect Wave, we spent a lot of time in Simonstown, and I had to do a lot of like diving. I'm not really a good diver, and
swim?
it was the
Are
middle
you a
of
good
winter.
swimmer?
Yeah, I'm not the greatest swimmer, and it was cold. So we had to dive in. I had to like dive, grab some fake crayfish from the bottom of the ocean, and bring it up, and I put it in my boat, and then they row us back, and then I'd sit around a U shape of heaters just to like get warm again, and then we go out again. So it's like takes would take half an hour, 40 minutes per take, and we did like 3 of those. Like
I think
half
that's
a
the
day
worst, like shooting in like winter, all
Oh,
those situations.
yeah,
where
where it's
it's
cold.
either you're in the summer and you're shooting an ad or a film that's meant to be in the winter.
yeah.
So everybody's got like jackets on.
So, and then you just like, and it's like, stop sweating. Like,
Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh,
and
dude.
nobody sees that shit.
No.
You know,
No,
when you're watching
nobody
it.
sees that,
You just
no.
think obviously it was cold. Obviously it was hot or whatever.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, fuck. It's like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But Marty, thank you so much for chatting.
Yeah, man,
really
it
enjoyed our
was
chat.
a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks again.
Hope to be back again sometime soon.
It's not going to be back.
Wow.